When you reach maps in Path of Exile 2, there's often this problem of chicken and the egg. On one hand, you feel like you need to juice your maps in order to progress your character. On the other hand, you feel like you cannot juice your maps until you progress your character. In this short guide, I will share with you how I approach this problem and scale my characters in the endgame. This guide is from the softcore trade league point of view and aimed at beginners. However, I've scaled characters in HCSSF by applying many of these same strategies, and you can too. The common saying I hear from POE 1 players is that the campaign is just a tutorial and the true game begins at maps. Although the POE 2 campaign feels much more substantial, it is true that the endgame is an entirely different beast and demands a deliberate approach. Each player should identify their own endgame goals. Essentially, you only clear the current league if you meet those goals and decide that you have beat your league. Some players strive for level 100. Some strive to kill all pinnacle bosses at the highest tier difficulty. Some aim to amass riches. This guide assumes that your end goal aligns with something close to the following: leveling a character to level 95, scaling that character to clear T3 pinnacle bosses, and farming enough currency to enjoy a build worth around 100 divs. This is how I claim league victory from a more casual perspective, but you can scale this up or down depending on your own goals. In order to scale your character for T3 pinnacle bosses, you need to understand the various sources of character power. Current POE 2 design decisions are in some cases contrary to what is typical in the genre, and you might be focusing on the wrong things. Because each build is different, this guide can only cover the basic principles, which are true in most cases. In order to truly scale your character, you will need to either follow a detailed guide or obtain deep knowledge into the specific mechanics of your build. Gear is by far and away the most significant source of character power in Path of Exile 2. To be even more specific, your weapon alone largely determines what content you can clear. When scaling your character's power, always look first at your weapon and next at the rest of your gear. For instance, maxing out plus to your applicable skill levels is a huge power boost for most builds. For martial weapon users, percentage physical damage and flat physical damage are usually best for prefixes, even if you're using an elemental skill, due to the way skills typically convert physical damage to the elemental damage. For martial weapon suffixes, attack speed, plus to level of weapon skills, and plus to crit chance are usually the best modifiers. Plus to crit chance on your weapon is multiplicative, and even small amounts make a large impact on your character sheet chance to crit. For spell users, maxing out your plus to your specific spell skills is crucial, followed by percentage increase to spell damage or your specific elemental spell damage. Percentage damage as extra elemental damage, cast speed, and critical hit chance are also very strong modifiers. After weapons, rings and gloves are important sources of offensive power. Martial weapon users are often seeking triple rolled flat damage rings, and spell users can get more percentage increases to elemental damage and more cast speed. Regarding crit chance and crit damage bonus, most builds will end up needing both in high amounts to effectively farm the highest tier endgame content. I usually save these modifiers for last when scaling my characters, knowing they are usually not very effective in small amounts. When scaling character power, don't ignore the little things, as these all add up to make a huge difference in your power level. For instance, ensure you are improving quality of all your gear, socketing, and even corrupting. My advice is to save corrupting for when you have a backup piece of gear for that slot to prevent backtracking in power after a bad valve roll. Don't forget to anoint your neck piece. There are cheap and effective options for your league start that you can use even just after a couple delirium mirrors. Jewels are another aspect of gear that new players may be underrating. Don't just slot whatever you pick up. Be deliberate in farming for jewels and crafting them and/or targeting deals on the market early in your endgame. Trial of Secamus is a great way to farm for jewels in your league start that you can either use or sell for good profit. Remember that you can desecrate jewels, and you can now re-roll magic jewels entirely for 4 new modifiers with alchemies. You can also re-roll 3 jewels for 1 in the reforging bench. Increased item rarity is one of, if not the most important affix in the game. When you don't have any, it is very difficult to scale your character because loot drops will be extremely poor. Increased item rarity can be found as both a prefix and a suffix on gear, and some gear slots can roll rarity on both prefixes and suffixes. If your typical roll results in 20% increased rarity, you can effectively stack up to the soft cap of 150% increased item rarity with rare gear alone. However, every affix used to increase item rarity is an affix not used to scale your character power. This is a major trade-off that you must manage throughout the endgame. I aim for between 1 and 3 rarity affixes throughout the campaign and into early mapping. This equates to around 20 to 60% increased item rarity. I tend to hold at this level until I have reached a power level that allows me to farm T15 maps. Only then do I start to seek upgrades that either hold or increase my power level while also increasing item rarity. I aim for at least 100% in the endgame farming, while 150% is optimal. Anything above this is typically a waste in solo farming. Although offense is typically your best defense in Path of Exile 2, if you ignore your defensives, you are likely going to suffer more than you need to. Capping out and even overcapping your elemental resistance is an essential early endgame goal for most builds. Overcapping acts as a buffer against temporary resistance reductions from various waystone and monster sources. Chaos resistance becomes more important as you scale into higher tier maps. I aim for around 20% in the early endgame and then scale up to 50% and beyond. The rest of the defensives are more dependent on build. In general, it is usually best to include multiple defensive layers in Path of Exile 2. For instance, running with evasion, deflection, and a shield is an example of layering defensives. In this case, monster attacks must pass an evasion roll and shield roll before hitting, and then pass through a deflection roll and possible mitigation there before actually hitting the character. If you were running with only evasion, physical attacks would need to pass only one of those rolls to hit and would not be mitigated. Even with great defensives, one-shots are still a real possibility in Path of Exile 2. However, with strong defensives, you will generally be able to make more mistakes and survive. If you find that you're consistently being deleted by trash packs, you may need to shore up your defensives. Understanding how to synergize with your chosen Ascendancy is another major source of power in Path of Exile 2. If you are following a build guide, someone has hopefully done this for you. If not, I recommend players get familiar with using POE 2 Ninja and Path of Building 2. These are indispensable tools for you to research and simulate options for your build. My approach is to start with a general build idea by choosing an Ascendancy and primary skills for wave clear and for bossing damage. As I get further into the game and unlock more skill and support options, I will often research what other players are doing with POE 2 Ninja. By sorting and filtering, you can quickly see what skills are popular with your Ascendancy, what supports are popular with your skills, which uniques are popular with your build, and how players are pathing in the passive tree. In Path of Building 2, you can load your current character by copying your gear, skills, Ascendancy, and passives into the tool. For gear, you can Control-C in the game and Control-V in the tool in order to copy them over. Once loaded, you can simulate changes to your build and view the impact to your character sheet. This is powerful for any player looking to increase their own agency over their character builds, rather than following online guides. Obtaining your 4th Ascendancy for maximum 8 points is an important source of power in the endgame, and you want to do this as early as you can. I find that I'm normally able to get my 3rd Ascendancy in white maps, and then my 4th Ascendancy around yellow to red maps. The mapping mechanics can seem daunting as there is much to consider. Here are some general tips to help you focus on what matters to scale your character more efficiently. In the beginning, it is best to explore your Atlas map and travel out towards corruption and unique maps. Running these awards Atlas points, and you want to unlock these as soon as you can. I spend my early points on increased pack size to increase experience gained in maps. You may also find increasing waystone drop chance to be useful to sustain waystones in the early game. As of patch 0.3.1, Doriani will sell waystones at one level below your highest cleared waystone. For instance, if you have cleared up to tier 5, he will begin selling tier 4s. His inventory will refresh when your character levels up. To obtain waystones 1 tier higher than your current map, defeat powerful map bosses. While scaling through early and mid game, I run white and blue waystones, especially in hardcore. I always prefer increasing Waystone tier difficulty over juicing the Waystones until reaching tier 15. This means you will only be running with one tablet, if any, while scaling. I don't really care to focus tablets early on, especially if this is your league start, but if you have a bunch of tablets to choose from, anything that increases monster density will help you level faster. Increased experience gain is also good. Note that the increased gold modifier will reduce your currency drop rates. As I level up my Atlas, I usually will focus on aside mechanics such as lockboxes or essences. Essences are extremely powerful in SSF and for crafting upgrades. In the end game, when running fully juiced Waystones, I respec my Atlas to pick up points that increase effectiveness of tablets and Waystones. Note that increasing Waystone modifiers is a double-edged sword, increasing both reward and difficulty, meaning it is best to save these points for when your build is fully online and able to handle the increased difficulty. For endgame mechanics, it is really up to your preference on what to focus on. I like to take a general approach and level up all mechanics. Some players choose to focus and farm specific activities such as breach. Understanding what your build is strong in will influence this choice. Early on, I like anything that increases monster density in my maps. Later on, I prefer to focus on the most profitable activities for the league, which match my character's strengths. All of these topics covered in this guide can go extremely deep, and we only scratch the surface. I plan to deep dive these topics in future videos. If there are particular areas you want to see covered, please let me know in the comments. Until next time, take care.